I used to think working the night shift in the security monitoring room would be an easy job. No customers, no noise, just sitting in front of dozens of screens for 8 hours, making sure nothing unusual happened. The building I worked in was an old office building, built in the 1970s, quietly located on the outskirts of the city. During the day, it was crowded and bustling, but at night, after 10 p.m., it transformed into a completely different place, empty, cold, and sometimes something felt off. My night shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The job was simple: monitor 36 cameras placed in every corner, hallways, elevators, parking lots, and fire escapes. If anyone entered or exited outside of regular hours, I had to report it immediately to the patrol team. But for the first 3 weeks, everything was completely quiet. So quiet that I almost forgot I was working in an old building full of spooky stories. Until one night. That night, the clock struck 2:45 a.m. I remember it very clearly. At that moment, I was yawning widely, my eyes tired from the monotonous flickering of the camera screens, when suddenly a strange movement caught my eye. On screen number 12, the 5th floor hallway area, I saw a dark shadow flash across. I frowned and zoomed in on the screen. That hallway was completely empty. I rewound the recording, slowing down the video a few seconds earlier, and this time I saw it very clearly. A shadowy figure, blurry, slowly walking down the hallway. No clear face, no clear gender, just a solid black shape, seemingly absorbing all the light around it. I immediately opened the internal speaker and called the patrol team, but the landline only rang a few times before going silent. No one answered. I stood up, grabbed a flashlight, and considered going up to the 5th floor to check. But instinct told me, don't. Instead, I sat frozen, glued to the screen, watching every movement. That dark shadow continued to move, then stopped abruptly, right in front of the technical room door, the main server room of the building. It stood there, motionless, not moving, not leaving, just standing, as if staring directly at the camera. I swallowed hard. All sorts of thoughts began to race through my head. A burglar? A homeless person? Or worse, something that didn't belong to this world. I remembered a story a previous night shift worker had once told, that there had been an accident in this building many years ago. An electrician fell from the 5th floor because the elevator malfunctioned, dying instantly. No one knew if it was an accident or something else. Thinking about this, goosebumps crawled all over me. I picked up the phone and called Paul, the guy who worked the night shift before me. Luckily, he answered after 2 rings. Hello? His voice was hoarse with sleep. Paul, it's me. Have you ever seen anything strange on the 5th floor camera? Silence for a moment. Then Paul sighed. You saw it too, huh? I froze. What? What's going on? I whispered. I don't know, but don't go up to the 5th floor. I tried. It's best to just leave it alone. Paul hung up before I could ask anything more. I turned back to the screen. The dark shadow had vanished, as if it had dissolved into thin air. I rewound the camera again, checking each frame slowly, and this time I noticed something chilling. That dark shadow didn't have a shadow beneath its feet. It hovered, light as smoke. That night, I stayed awake the entire time. My eyes never left the screens. My ears strained to hear every tiny sound. The wind whistling through the cracks in the door, the fluorescent lights buzzing and popping. It wasn't until the morning shift arrived to relieve me that I dared to stand up and leave. But the matter didn't end there. For the entire following week, every night at exactly 2:45 a.m., the 5th floor camera recorded strange movements. The dark shadow, each time it appeared, was closer to the camera. Initially, it was just at the end of the hallway, then halfway down the hallway, then right outside the server room door. Until the 7th night, just as I turned on the monitors, the entire camera system went haywire, leaving only a blurry image. Within the static, I swore I saw a face, pressed against the camera lens, distorted, blurry, as if whispering something no one could understand. I didn't hesitate for another second. I submitted my resignation letter the very next morning. No one asked why. Maybe they knew too. Maybe they had seen it too. Now I work in a new office, bright and modern. No old cameras, no long, dark hallways, no dark shadows. But sometimes at 2:45 a.m. when I'm alone in the break room, I still feel like someone is standing behind me, staring. And sometimes I even hear a whisper right behind my ear. I started working the night shift at St. Elora Hospital early last year. It wasn't my first choice. The night shift was often lonely, eerily silent, and rumors about the hospital were anything but scarce. But I needed the money, and my daytime classes didn't leave me any other option. St. Elora was an old hospital built in the 1950s with long, white-tiled corridors and flickering fluorescent lights overhead. At night, it turned into a cold, endless maze. Veteran staff used to joke, "If you're not careful, you'll get lost down in the old basement and never come back." I laughed politely whenever I heard that. Back then, I didn't believe it. It started during my third night shift. It was around 3 a.m. I had just finished my rounds through the inpatient ward. Everything was normal. Patients were asleep, lights were dimmed to save power. I returned to the nurse's station, poured myself a cup of coffee, and began working on some patient records for the morning shift. That's when I heard footsteps. Soft, steady, the shuffling sound of slippers against the tiled floor. I thought it was just a patient getting up to use the bathroom, so I stood up to check. I stepped out into the hallway. It was empty. I glanced up at the ceiling camera. The small monitor at the nurse's station showed a live feed of the east corridor. But something was wrong. A white figure, blurry, almost like someone in a hospital gown, was gliding across the camera's view. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. I immediately rushed to the east corridor. No one was there. No doors opening. No missing patients. Just an endless, cold, flickering hallway. I returned to the nurse's station and rewound the footage. There, captured on the screen, was a woman in a white hospital gown, her hair long and hanging down, passing right under the camera. But her face, there was nothing there, just a blank, smooth surface. I held my breath. I saved the clip, intending to show it to my supervisor the next morning. But things only got worse. 2 nights later, during another solo shift, a patient called for me around 2:50 a.m. He was an elderly man being treated for pneumonia. "Nurse," he rasped. I saw a woman walk past my room. Her face, it was strange, blank. I froze. I hadn't told anyone about what I saw. I asked, "When did you see her?" He glanced at the wall clock. Around 2:30. I didn't say anything more. I simply checked the cameras. There she was again, in the east corridor, walking slowly, silently, floating across the screen, just like before. A week later, one of the senior night nurses quit. She had been working at St. Elora for over 5 years. I asked her why. She simply said, "I can't sleep anymore. Every night I see someone walking past the pharmacy window." I asked carefully, "Was it a woman in a white gown with no face?" She went pale. I began losing sleep. Each night on duty, I would obsessively check the cameras. At exactly 2:30 a.m., as if on schedule, she would appear. Not always clearly, sometimes a glimpse, sometimes a full figure, but always at the same time. Always heading toward the same place, the old stairwell leading to the abandoned basement. I asked the chief doctor about the basement. He told me it's been sealed off for years. It used to be the maternity ward, but it was closed after the fire in 1986. I asked, "Was there anyone who died?" He paused, then said, "There was a pregnant woman who didn't survive. We couldn't save her. But don't dwell on old stories. You're new here." But I couldn't help it. That night, I decided to go down to the basement. I took a flashlight, a spare key, and a small handheld camera hidden in my uniform pocket. The staircase down was rusty and freezing cold. The lights didn't work. Only the sound of whistling wind and the stench of mold. I walked carefully. The stone floor below was cracked and darkened with what looked like old stains. At the end of the basement hall, there was an old, splintered wooden door. I opened it. Inside was an empty room. Only an ancient, dust-covered birthing bed sat in the center. And on the bed, a deep, fresh indentation, as if someone had just been lying there. Before I could react, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around. She was there, very close. My flashlight beam passed right through her body, translucent like mist, but my eyes could see her clearly. No nose, no mouth, only a pair of deep, hollow black eyes staring directly at me. I don't remember exactly how I escaped. I only know I screamed until my throat was raw, dropped my flashlight, smashed my camera, and somehow crawled back near the basement elevator. When I woke up in the hospital's infirmary the next morning, they said I had fainted from low blood sugar. No one believed the story I told. The hallway cameras? Already broken in the basement for years. My handheld camera? shattered beyond recovery. No evidence left. I resigned a week later. But sometimes when I drive past St. Elora at night, I still see through the fifth floor windows a white figure gliding across the corridor. No sound, no face, only a pair of endless black eyes waiting for someone to notice. I've never been someone who scares easily. I've worked night shifts at plenty of places, hospitals, warehouses, even a 24/7 gas station off the highway. But no place ever made me feel uneasy like the parking lot behind this office building. The job was simple: night security for a 3-story office complex, mostly small businesses, a few law offices, some real estate firms. My shift started at 10 p.m. and ended at 6 in the morning. Usually, nothing happened, just hourly patrols, checking doors, and sitting in the security room watching the monitors. But everything changed about 3 weeks ago. The first night. That night, I was sitting in the security office, eyes on the camera feeds. Everything was quiet until about 2:48 a.m. The rear parking lot camera, usually the quietest, glitched for a moment, then came back. When the image returned, I saw a figure standing next to a white pickup truck at the far end of the lot. I zoomed in. The image was blurry, almost like fog clung to the figure. It stood completely still, no features visible, just a dark shape. I checked the overnight parking list. The truck belonged to an employee who had left around 6 p.m. I radioed for backup, no answer. Finally, I grabbed my flashlight and went outside to check. The lot was empty. No one by the truck. I circled the vehicle, nothing unusual. But when I shined my flashlight across the driver's side window, a chill ran down my spine. There on the glass was a faint handprint. Not a clear one, just a smudged, wet mark. I looked around. No wind, no rain, no mist, nothing that could explain it. I returned to the security office and logged the event as nothing found. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. The second night, footsteps. The next night, around the same time, 2:50 a.m., I caught movement on the camera. This time, it wasn't a person. It was something crawling low across the lot, fast and unnatural. It moved on all fours, like a human, but wrong. The shape was blurry, just a mass of darkness sliding between the cars. I replayed the footage 3 times. Each time I looked closer, and I swear, 2 pale eyes flashed at the camera for just a second before disappearing behind an SUV. I rushed out again to check. Once more, nothing. But this time, near the far side of the lot, I found a long streak of mud, like something had dragged itself toward the side entrance. The basement door was supposed to be locked at all times. I checked the handle, still locked. I stepped back, feeling a strong sense of being watched from the shadows. I returned to the office without seeing anyone. The third night, someone inside? By now, I realized the strange activity always happened close to 3 a.m. I set an alarm for 2:45, ready with the camera controls. Nothing at first, but then, focusing on the white truck from before, the truck's interior lights suddenly came on. No one near it, no alarms triggered. I zoomed in. Through the windshield, I could barely make out a shape sitting in the driver's seat, but it wasn't right. The figure sat hunched over, its head tilted at a grotesque angle, no face, just a shadowy form with wide neck, glowing white eyes staring out into the night. I rushed outside. When I reached the truck, the lights were off again, and the cab was empty. I checked the doors, locked. No signs of forced entry. But the worst part was the feeling like someone was breathing softly right behind my ear as I walked back to the building. The final night, I had already decided to quit, but I needed to know I wasn't imagining it. I kept my phone recording video and carried a heavy-duty flashlight as I walked into the parking lot at 2:40 a.m. Dead silent, no movement. I reached the far corner near the fence. That's when I heard it, a soft tapping against glass. I turned around. On the window of a silver sedan, a pale hand was pressed firmly against the glass from the inside. I approached slowly. The hand vanished. I ducked down to look under the car, and that's when I saw it. Something long, human-shaped but all wrong, crawling slowly toward me. No face, just a slick, mud-covered body breathing heavily, dragging itself across the pavement. I staggered back and shined the flashlight on it, and it disappeared instantly, like it had never been there. That was it. I didn't finish my shift. Afterward, I filed an official incident report, but management brushed it off. Nothing unusual on the cameras, they said. I asked for a transfer and they approved it. A week later, I heard the new night guard quit after 3 shifts. No explanation given. I don't know what's lurking in that parking lot. But sometimes, when I drive past the old building late at night, I swear I can feel a pair of eyes tracking me from the darkness between the parked cars. And if I glance at my rearview mirror, sometimes I catch a glimpse of a pale figure crawling between the rows of cars, still searching, still watching. I worked the night shift at an old office building on the outskirts of the city. My job was simple: patrol each floor on schedule, ensure everything was secure, and report any incidents. The building had 12 floors, plus a deep basement level. The basement had been abandoned for years. When I first got the job, the manager gave me one clear instruction: never go down to the basement unless absolutely necessary. I figured it was just a safety precaution. I'd heard the basement's wiring was unstable. I didn't think much of it until that strange night. Around 2 a.m., I was sitting in the surveillance room watching the security cameras cycle through each floor. Everything looked normal, silent, empty halls stretching under sterile fluorescent lights. Suddenly, an alert sounded. Elevator, movement detected basement level. I frowned. No one should be down there at this hour. I quickly switched the monitor to the elevator feed. Elevator 2 was descending, even though no buttons had been pressed. The doors opened at the basement. I zoomed the camera in. All I could see was the elevator's open doors, leading into thick, impenetrable darkness beyond. No one entered. No one exited. The elevator door simply stayed open, closing slowly, then opening again, as if waiting for someone. My heart pounded. I double-checked the entry logs. No employees were scheduled to work late tonight. The building was supposed to be completely empty, except for me. I hesitated, then grabbed my flashlight and jacket and left the security room. The hallway leading to the elevators was eerily normal. The overhead lights buzzed faintly. My footsteps echoed louder than usual. I pressed the call button for elevator 1, not wanting to even touch elevator 2. But before I could react, elevator 2 dinged, and its doors slid open right in front of me. The cabin inside was empty. A cold draft swept out from the shaft, chilling me to the bone. Something unseen pulled me forward. I stepped in. The doors slammed shut behind me. No buttons were pressed, yet the elevator began descending. The digital display flickered. 10, 9, 8, 7. I slammed the open door button. Nothing happened. The controls were completely dead. 2, 1. The elevator slid straight down into the basement. When the doors opened, a thin mist rolled into the cabin. I shone my flashlight out into the corridor. The hallway stretched endlessly, mold stains crawling up the cracked walls. The ceiling sagged dangerously. It was utterly silent. Then, in the corner of my eye, something moved. A white figure drifted across the hallway, almost floating just above the ground. It wasn't walking, it was gliding. Panic flooded me. I stumbled backward into the elevator and hammered the close button. The doors began closing too slowly, and through the narrowing gap, the figure turned. It had a pale, eyeless, mouthless face, staring directly at me. The elevator shuddered violently as if something slammed into it from outside. I gripped the handrail, barely breathing. The elevator finally began ascending, slow and labored. Relief started to creep in, until I glanced down at the door gap. A hand, impossibly long, thin, and pale, was creeping through the gap, clawing toward me. I frantically hit every button. The elevator jolted, then suddenly rocketed up toward the ground floor. The doors flung open, and I bolted out, nearly falling onto the lobby floor. When I dared to look back, the cabin was empty. No hand, no figure. The next morning, I quit without hesitation. Nobody believed my story. They said I was overtired. Maybe I imagined it. But sometimes, when I pass by that old building, I swear, I still hear the soft chime of the elevator and the basement doors opening into the dark, waiting for someone else.